Now may I request P. Sainath sir to please present your views and opinions and your thoughts about the event, sir.
That was a surprise. I didn't know that I was to speak after you, I thought, but okay. Forgive me, ನಂಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಗೊತ್ತು. I speak 5 languages equally badly. Andolana has requested me to speak 15-20 minutes on the state of media and journalism. You could not have chosen a more depressing subject. Okay. Though there are some bright spots here and there, we have to make a distinction today between media and journalism. Media are profit-seeking, profit-making institutions. That's who they are. Okay? They are corporations. Don't think of them in terms of vehicle of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And by the way, I want to tell you something. In India, there is no problem of freedom of speech. The problem is freedom after the speech. After you have said, then you get whacked or beaten up or assassinated or whatever. But there's no problem of freedom of speech. Not many of your papers would have told you. As I said, the distinction, media and journalism. Media is institutions, it's corporations making money. The value of the media and entertainment industry in this country is currently 1.9 trillion rupees. And media and entertainment are one industry, they're not separate. In fact, entertainment is bigger than journalism. So, in 2024, March 2024, the projected value of media entertainment industry is 2.32 trillion rupees. Trillion is 12 zeros. That is the value of your media in March 24, just in time for the elections. Nobody told you in your media, very few exceptions are there, that April 12th marked the 200th anniversary of real Indian journalism. The founding of Mirathul Akhbar and Sangbad Kaumudi by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. And from the first issue, it was a paper that stood for movements, for causes, for progress. In the second issue, he wrote an editorial that led to the closure of his paper. He wrote a scathing editorial on the punishment of a farmer, a Rayat. Pratap Narayan Das, I think he was a Rayat only, a farmer. I may be mistaken, but I remember it. The judge of Komila district had ordered Pratap Narayan Rayat to be whipped for some crime that they claimed he had committed. He died from the whipping. Raja Ram Mohan Roy then wrote such a powerful editorial that was translated into English by English journals. It led to the judge of Komila being pulled up before the Supreme Court of the time. Yeah, I was just thinking, journalist after journalist is going to jail and prison today. Who is writing an editorial on it? I did a check before I came here. 1 week after the 2 major arrests of Setalwad and Zubair, how many editorials have there been, lead editorials? But then we are not Raja Ram Mohan Roy anymore. The 200 years, there is 160 years in which you can be proud of your journalism, the great tradition of Indian journalism, the journalism of Gandhi, Ambedkar, and Bhagat Singh. And yes, many people don't realize we all deify Bhagat Singh as a revolutionary. He was professionally a journalist. Bhagat Singh wrote in 4 languages and learned a 5th in prison before being hanged. He wrote in Punjabi, Urdu, English, and Hindi. He wrote in Kirti, Veer Pratap, Veer Arjun, and Akali. He wrote in dozens of other magazines under pseudonyms because he was on the run. However, that great tradition in the last 30 years to a tradition of complete corporatization of the media. Everything is done. The bottom line is the bottom line of the balance sheet. Right? And it has, if you look at the last 100 years of Indian journalism, before these 30 years, the media was the press was the child of the freedom struggle. It built unity and bonding. Today, our media build hatred and violence. Okay? We really need to consider what this metamorphosis, how did it come about? What was it brought about by? I would say the first factor that you've got to look at is to stop understanding media in terms of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and understand it as a corporation trying to make its money like any other corporation, except it has special powers. I am here today because a newspaper like Andolana has been, by its founding, a newspaper of movements and causes, and you belong to the great tradition of Indian journalism. That's why I have come here today. As of today, there are only 2 schools of journalism. There is journalism and there is stenography. Stenography to power. Stenographers to the powerful. That is the second school. 85% of journalism is today falling in the second school. Still, there are journalists who stand up, speak out, except today they suffer even in a free India. And that is unacceptable. That is repulsive and disgusting and obscene. As I said, when we talk about media, we are talking about institutions of great power. Let me give you one example. Let us look at how the media covered the farmers' struggle and the 3 farm laws. I'm not talking about Andolana, I'm talking about the corporate media in general. I read more than 30-40 editorials of major newspapers in this country. On the farmers' struggle, they all said, yes, the government handled it badly. They should talk to these fellows sweetly. As if the farmers are stupid children, they just have to be spoken to sweetly and softly, and then they'll understand everything. The last line of the editorial would say, but don't withdraw these laws. They're very good because they're good for corporation. Who was the biggest media? I'll give you a number actually. Who was the biggest owner of media in India at the time? Who was the richest man in India at that time? Mr. Mukesh Ambani. He is the biggest media owner, and he was one of the 3 biggest beneficiaries of the farm laws. Now, not only is he the biggest media owner, he is the biggest, in the media that he does not own, he is the biggest advertiser. So the chances of newspapers standing up and telling Mr. Ambani, you are wrong, those are very few. They are almost negligible statistically. How many of your newspapers, did one newspaper, one channel tell you that at the time of the farm law struggle, that Mr. Ambani's personal wealth, at that time $85.5 billion, was greater than the GDP of Punjab? Mr. Ambani's personal wealth was greater than the GDP of Punjab. Mr. Adani's personal wealth today is greater than the GDP of Haryana. Okay? And then you ask why people are angry. Oh, just talk to them sweetly. It'll all get over. That was the problem. This is how the media today have a structural compulsion to lie. I'm not talking about the great tradition. I'm talking about the tradition of the corporate media. Yeah. Let me, in the limited time I have, let me give you one example which will tell you where we are on media freedom. In December 2020, the central government of India requested me to be a member of a committee on press freedom. Okay, they were very upset. World Press Freedom Index. The World Press Freedom Index had ranked India 142. 142. In the number of billionaires in the world, you are number 3. But press freedom, you were 142. And the government was upset and it formed a committee. That's what governments do when they're upset, they form committees. It formed a committee on press freedom. 13 members, 11 bureaucrats, 2 journalists. The other journalist on that committee attended 2 meetings and did not say a word. I was requested to be a member. I said on the promise that we will look at press freedom in India on the ground through the eyes of the Indian journalist, not through any ranking anywhere else. And my job is not to rebut some organization in France. I was assured that this would be the case. So meetings were held, subgroups were formed, they drafted a report and sent us in March last year a draft report. It was called the Index Monitoring Committee. Now this was a very high-powered committee constituted on the order of the Union Cabinet Secretary. That is the most powerful bureaucrat in the country. Okay? He's not an ordinary IAS secretary in state or something. He is a Union Cabinet Secretary. He takes his orders only from 2 people. You know both of them. This committee was formed. Anyway, when the report was sent to me, the draft report, it was very striking. There was no word draft. And second, everything that I had been assured and had promised would be taken into the report was missing. So I wrote a note of dissent. Guess what happened? For the first time in Indian political history, a high power committee vanished. It just vanished. The email ID went dead. Huh? Nobody, who killed the committee? I don't know. It just stopped functioning. Very senior committee. Director General of Press Information Bureau, Director General of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. A committee vanished overnight. A committee disappeared. The report disappeared, though I have it. I suppose, looking at what's happening in the last 2 weeks, I should be grateful that it is the report that disappeared and not the journalist. Right? So that probably is a small mercy. But this is the state of press freedom in your country. Look at how, again, because you are Andolana, because you have stood with farmers and workers, I want to point out to you how many of the big media have explained the 77th round of the National Sample Survey on farmers' income. We got a promise several years ago. We will double farmers' income in 5 years. Do you remember that? We will double. Did it happen? Did farmers' incomes increase? Yes, they increased. But not from farming. Farmers' income from cultivation declined. It declined in the 77th round of 2018-19, and that is before the pandemic. Before the pandemic. So you imagine what happened in the last 2 years. The income of farmers rose in two sectors from animal husbandry, livestock, 77th round of NSS, and it rose from wage labor. More and more millions of farmers were going out to work as wage laborers because income from cultivation was dropping. Now that creates a further contradiction between the farmer and the agricultural laborer. There is more and more competition there for work, and the agricultural laborer's wage suffers as more and more people come into work there. So, to this day, have you seen in a major newspaper on the front page, farmers' income from cultivation declined in the period that their income was supposed to double? Now, again, it's not just on that issue, it's on a very large number of 37% of agricultural household income came, only 37% of total agricultural income came from cultivation, from farming. 5 years ago in 2013, it was 48%. So there's a 10% drop in income from cultivation. So you can see it whether it, look, understand one thing, the inequality that has gripped our country, and it is not just in the last 5 years, I will say it is in the last 30 years that we have adopted a path of development, a set of policies, a direction of policy that is devastating to poor people. And let's face it, the two greatest crops in the world are not rice and wheat. The two greatest crops in the world are hunger and thirst. And the revenue to be made from them is astonishing at a time when agriculture is taking a huge beating because of climate change, for which too we are doing very little, very, very little. Indian agriculture is really especially in the southern peninsular region, agriculture is going to take an even worse hit in the coming years. Yesterday, I was talking to NABARD, addressing the officers and workers of the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. It is very interesting to me, one, that they wanted me to speak to them. Two, NABARD, they were all so worried that NABARD is moving away from its original mandate. In fact, the mandate has changed. 1982, NABARD said, we are for equitable and sustainable agriculture development. Lending is to be to small farmers. Now they have a citizens charter which says lending to vagera, 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 to private parties, to partnership firms and to corporations. So agricultural credit has been shifted to non-farmers from farmers. Again, this did not happen yesterday. This has happened in the last 30 years. It has happened during the UPA rule. It has happened during the NDA rule. Where are our media telling the story? You know, how many of you know? You see, you've all seen the celebration of the greatest flagship program in India, the Fasal Bima Yojana, the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. How many of you know that the first state to withdraw from the program is the Pradhan Mantri state, Gujarat? Gujarat was the first state to withdraw from the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana in July 2019. Since then, 6 other states have withdrawn. Okay? Because it is so harmful. In the RTI, the Chandigarh Tribune newspaper found that in the first 24 months of the Fasal Bima Yojana, 18 corporations made profits of 15,795 crores or 21 crores per day profit. 21 crores per day profit. 86% of farmer compensation claims were rejected. But 18 companies made 15,795 crores profit. Now, where there is no scrutiny in the media, we have failed, okay? We have failed in our job, we have failed in our mission, having been trusted with a great tradition, I think in the last 30 years, we have completely let people down. Incidentally, I asked Andolana to consider a point I have to make. It is not just the farm laws that were harmful to farmers. I say Agnipat is also harmful to farmers. Who is your Indian Jawan? The Indian Jawan is a Kisan in uniform. That is who the Indian Army Jawan is. That is who the Indian Army Jawan has been for 200 years. He is a farmer in uniform. Okay? And what is your Agnipat? Agnipat is not a recruitment scheme, it is a retirement scheme. And it is a retirement scheme and creates a gene pool of security guards for corporations and political parties. What else does it do? 1 week ago, I was addressing the meeting of Captain Bao, a freedom fighter who died at age 100 in Satara, and the Sainik school there. What a wonderful Sainik school. Even before independence, it goes back to the days of Shivaji's descendants. I was thinking, all these young boys and girls in the school, their whole life has been spent wanting to serve the nation in the army. What happens now to them? So I'm saying lots and lots. I'm looking not at individuals. I'm not looking here at political party. I'm looking at the policy directions we have taken, and I'm looking at the complete collapse of the media's commitment to the public. You see, we used to say very long ago, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, but with the globalization, with commercialization, that slogan changed in 1991 to Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Louis Vuitton also. You take any sector of farming and show me where a newspaper, a channel has consistently followed the interests of the farmer, of the farm worker, of the farm laborer, or especially of women farmers, Dalit farmers, and Adivasi farmers. You won't find it. You know, I think that media you can give up on, but don't give up on journalism. Because even today, your journalists, alone, isolated, are standing up, fighting, suffering for it, trying to bring you the information, trying to bring you the truth. Okay? You're at a crossroads. You have to choose. What do we want